Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.
Welcome back to the Global Indian Podcast, home to the greatest conversations and the official platform for open and liberal minds. Because yes, let's face it, we are everywhere. Now, as you know, every week we plunge ourselves into the human experience behind our perceptions of identity, take a second look at the countries we now call home, and tackle those big conversations. Well, this week I'm joined by my dear friend, migrant researcher and Japanese and Indian studies scholar, as well as Global Indian Ambassador, Megha Wadhwa, as we re-look at the ideas of immigrant identity. Now, did you know over 36,000 Indian migrants currently live in Japan, 30% of whom are females and they're known as trailing spouses. Often these women find themselves with a total dislocation of culture, language, and know-how. Their hopes and dreams of hard academic work of the past is often substituted with unexpected isolation, loneliness, and unanswered expectations. In this podcast, we have a look at what migration truly means, the hidden impact, and what more you need to know. But before then, a quick note from our dear sponsors. If you want to find out more about the Global Indian series, by the way, well, it couldn't be easier. Simply come to the website, which is www.globalindianseries.com. There you can listen to this podcast and the entire repertoire of discussions so far.
Hi, this is Damesh Shingala, co-founder of Novus. At Novus, we believe technology leads the way for a meaningful change. We are on a mission to change the way corporations, governments, and institutions interact with information. Same as the Global Indian podcast, help people transform for a better future. Find out more on how we are inspiring global change, either at the Global Indian Series website or Novus website to learn more about our innovative software solutions. From our family to yours, I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you.
My name is Chitra Stern, and I am a proud Global Indian Ambassador and CEO of Martignal Resorts and Martignal Residences. We pride ourselves on the journeys that define a community, and our developments bring people together. Did you know that over 70,000 people just like us call Portugal home? The Global Indian journey has brought people together in a meaningful way, and on behalf of all of us at Martignal, we want to thank you for joining us in these remarkable conversations. We look forward to seeing you here in Lisbon post-COVID.
Hi, my name is Divya and I'm co-founder of the Global Indian Podcast. Before you get to today's show, I've got a quick favour to ask. If you've been enjoying our conversations, I'd love if you could take just 1 minute to leave us a review on the platform that you're listening to us on and share our work to friends and family. It helps us out a lot. Word of mouth is the primary way that we grow. Thanks for your continued support.
It's wonderful to have. Thank you
It's
so much
wonderful
for
to have
having
me here too. I'm going to take that as a...
It's wonderful to have me.
Why not? Absolutely. What a great way to start. So, Megha, we've obviously known each other for quite a while. And
Yeah.
one thing that I find fascinating about you is that your personality is so multidimensional and it's really interesting. So, you know what I'm going to ask you. What's it like to be...
It's like, what's it like to be me? It's like to be so many things. Like I can't, yeah, I think I have so many aspects of me that sometimes people ask me, like, if somebody would ask me, what's your favorite color? And I'll be like, today I like black, but maybe tomorrow I'd feel differently. I would also still like black, but there will be an addition to something else in my life. So I think like with all these years that I have lived on this earth, and very soon I'll be 40, which I'm very excited about. I think there's so many aspects of me, and I like each aspect, for example, how when I am in India, who I am, when I'm in Japan, I'm a different person. When I'm in Germany, their experiences are different. I am a scholar, I am a friend, and I am just me. And there is a philosophical side of me. There is this other side of me where when I am connecting to my students, or when I'm connecting to my colleagues, there is this other side of me, but they're all connected in some way. It's not like they're separated from each other.
It's like a
So
tapestry, isn't it? It all joins together.
yeah, it all joins together, even though it can be, like it might seem different, but then there is like this common connection to all this, which is me.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose what took you to Japan? Because that's an interesting story. And also, what has Japan taught you in terms of that personal philosophy? Has it emerged into you in some sorts?
So I moved to Japan in 2007, and that was not. Uh, so I was planning to go to Australia first, but then I was advised by my mentor in Japan, my language mentor in Japan, that it's better because I had interest in Japanese studies. So it would be better that I moved to go to Japan and study Japanese studies because I know the language, or I'm learn at least at the time I was learning the language, working for a Japanese company. And so, yeah, the question was like, why do I have to go to Australia to learn Japanese studies? Why can't I just go directly to Japan? So, which was a very good advice for a naive me at the time who was young. And then I decided to come to
I was going
Japan.
to say younger, younger.
Younger, oh,
Younger, there you go.
younger than, oh, I am super young, yes. 40-year young woman, yes. I actually do feel very young.
Good, good. Back on the Japan part, please. So,
Okay.
so the guy turns around and goes, "Come to Japan, study Japanese studies, right?" So then you
Yeah.
go to Japan. What was your thought system before going to Japan? What do you think it was going to be like compared to the reality?
Okay, so yeah, one thing to correct. So I actually first came to Japan to study the language.
Yeah.
Then afterwards, the journey went into me studying about Indian migrants in Japan and understanding the Japanese society. So, but when I moved to Japan, I was moving here because of some very difficult personal circumstances. So I think in that time, I wasn't thinking much. But I was definitely, I had this thing like, we all have this in India when we move abroad. We have this image of a foreign country.
Yeah.
Like, and this is something like which I have also discovered during my research on migration as a migrant studies a scholar, that uh, we all live in this myth that the world on the other side will be better. The grass on the other side is greener, and our problems will come to an end. But we don't realize that we have a new set of problems waiting for us, because I think that is what life is about. We escape from problems, thinking that they are not an essential part of our life, but we don't realize that they are the problems that make us who we are. The challenges we come across, the failures we come across actually make us the person who we are. Those experiences are very important, and we are always trying to escape them. I think this was my biggest learning through this whole process of migration, through my own journey, through the journey of the people that I talk to, that, like you don't, it's fine. The thought process of moving abroad is very good, I think, because it enriches your experiences. It opens like a whole world for you. And I encourage people to spend their life for few years in another place, uh, other than where they were born or where they grew up, because it just like gives you a completely different, and these experiences comes from the challenges you come through, like you come across, so that is, I mean, I encourage people, I tell parents that, it's good if you're sending your parents abroad because they will be on their own, like I was, I
Yeah.
was on my own away from my family. And that, the challenges I came across, I found a way to get through them. And that whole process is a beautiful journey. When you are living under the shadow of your parents or your loved ones all the time, the perspective of growth is not as much as when you are on your own.
Mm.
And I think that was the most important aspect of my journey, to leave alone. I remember as a child, I used to tell my parents that I don't want to leave, like I don't want to be away from my parents ever, to the extent that I don't ever want to get married. So that was, and then, so that was a life-changing moment for me when I was pushed to leave India and move abroad and start my life all again. So that whole process in that moment felt very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, because you asked me, like, what were your expectations? Like, what were you looking at? I was looking at my life to be nicer or to be better. But then I was at the same time very scared at the time. But then when now I look back, I feel that that decision was such a perfect decision I made in my life. Or life made for me, actually. I did not make it. Life made that decision for me. But that was so, like in that moment when life is deciding something for you, you're always questioning life. You're like, why did this happen to me? Why are we doing this? Why do I have to do this? But then when you go further down and just go with the flow of life, and when you look back one day, you realize that, oh, okay, life actually made a better decision than I could have made for myself.
Do you believe in fate then?
I don't believe only in fate. I believe in combination of hard work and fate. So fate alone doesn't work, I think. But there has to be I believe in karma and fate and hard work. Maybe you have to
Yeah.
do the action for the fate to be in your favor. You can't just be sleeping in bed doing nothing at all and expecting the fate to work in your favor. So I believe in fate, but in combination with other things.
It's almost like you have to get yourself in a certain level in order for those doors to open up. It's either physical
Exactly,
and mental.
exactly.
How has Japan changed you? How's it shifted your own personal philosophy? Because I suppose for many people, when they look towards Japan, it almost has that air of the last samurai type of kingdom that people think everyone's going to be walking around very Zen-like in appearance, and this very deep kind of philosophy that binds the communities together. But I know,
Mm,
obviously, as you stated earlier, especially with your own studies, you have a look at the migrant journeys, and we realize that things aren't always as it seems. But when it comes to Japan, has it changed you in terms of your own personal philosophy?
yeah, I think if you are careful of your surroundings and if you are a very keen learner, uh, there is always a positive change happening in you as you grow. And I do think like Japan has changed me in many ways. Like the simplest change would be my food habits, which has nothing to do with the philosophy, but then you are what you eat.
Yeah, it all comes together. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think like the simplest thing that Japan changed me was but then again, that came from my idea of changing my food habits was because I was keen on understanding the society. I was keen on experiencing Japan full-fledged, like I didn't want to leave any aspect of it. So I was like a vegetarian person when I was in India, and all my life I had been vegetarian to the extent my family is a vegetarian, but I was like a crazy vegetarian to the extent that sometimes like my mom would be like, "What is wrong with my kid?" So like I would just tell my mom some days like, I don't want to have now for next 40 days I am not having onion and garlic. So we are not like like in Jain
Yeah,
families we have these things,
yeah.
but we are not Jain. And my mom was like, where are you learning these things from, making my life difficult? Because now I'll have to cook separate food for you. So, but they were vegetarians, like, so all my life, so I'm just telling you, like, what
Yeah.
kind of
From
vegetarian I was.
this is how where you were on that extreme level.
Exactly, yeah. And then also, like, my mom would sometimes make like spinach curry, which
Yeah.
I absolutely love right now. But then at the time, I would be like literally arguing with my mom that when I am home, can you please not make this, please, because it smells like shit.
And what about now then?
So,
How's it changed
so
now?
yes, yes. So from there to now, or just let's go back in the past. From there to me moving to Japan, 2 years, I tried to be a vegetarian. And then I was like, I can't do it. And I have to just let myself loose and experience. I was a very fussy kid when it came to food.
Yeah.
And then after moving to Japan, I ate everything. Like I ate all kinds of meat, I ate all kinds of seafood, ate all kinds of vegetables. So I was just like, I went crazy on food. And my mom was surprised
Yeah.
that, from this person to this person, there is such a huge change my daughter has made. And then after 10 years, I became like more conscious about my food habits, and then I gave up meat,
Yeah.
and I decreased the intake of seafood, but I still love seafood very much. And yeah, so I think like this simple change says a lot about what Japan did to me. Like I was not fussy about food anymore. And
What did that mean to you? Because I think sometimes is what you mentioned earlier in a succinct way. It's not what you get out of a situation; it's who you become. And I suppose with you, when it comes to diet, that shift in diet is also a massive shift in your personal identity. You identify as a vegetarian.
exactly, totally, yes.
What was that turning point? What made you think, okay, do you know what? Let me almost control
I
what's
think
going into my body.
yes, I think no, it was like, so like you said, it says a lot about me that from being rigid and thinking like, like sometimes when I meet like new migrants, they often tell me these things that, this is who they are and this is what they want to be for the rest of their life. They will not do this, whether it's like about their own beliefs or whatever it is. But, so this is what I was when I was in India, that I am a vegetarian. I am not going to, and I was not vegetarian for religious reasons. I was vegetarian because that was there in my family. I was not eating onion or garlic for those 40 days for religious reasons. I was just being like, like I was doing more of it for self-control, which is actually good. But then there was this, like there was this rigidity in my head. But then being here made me more flexible towards life. I was more keen on experiencing life full on. I wanted to like just go and let myself, be and experience things and learn about them. So I was not restricting myself to be this person. I was letting myself loose to define myself to be certain person. You
That's
know what I mean?
interesting. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then I was like, I don't want to be this one person. There should be no way I should be able to define myself. My definition should be that that there's, like my definition should be that how can I put it in right words? That, like sometimes like you define yourself to be something, but I didn't want to define myself. I didn't want to put myself in some kind of box. So I wanted a lot of flexibility around me because that what I realized was that being flexible will help me learning at every step in life. And so that is the reason, like I said in the beginning, that if somebody would ask me what color I like,
Yeah.
I don't want to restrict myself from saying that, oh, black is my favorite color, red is my favorite color. No, there are so many colors, I can explore them all. And there,
I like that.
so there is just no one thing that I want to fix myself to. But that doesn't mean that I keep changing. It's just that I want to experience things.
You're
And in order
exploring.
to, exactly, I'm an explorer, like that's how I would like to define myself. That's the word, yes. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, so so that is important. And that rigidity we develop as human beings, it puts us in a box.
Why do you think we
So
developed that rigidity? Because you've spent an incredible amount of time looking at the migrant story. And I think one thing that we've seen, especially in migrants, when you go into a new location where you have a total dislocation, culture, language, cuisine, anything that is normally identifiable for you, there's almost that freeze, fight. God, what's the other word I'm looking for? Freeze, fight. God, Megha, you got into my head this morning. But you know what I mean is the
okay,
the
I
other
am
F
so
word.
glad that I'm not alone on this
You're
now.
not
Thank you.
alone in this
Thank you
one.
for joining my
I've joined
gang.
you.
We are all explorers
And
now.
I haven't even had the puffer fish. So fight, flight, freeze. So that's kind of what normally happens with a migrant. Um, but why do you think that happens? Why do you think sometimes we try and hold on to things that give us a sense of a mooring ground, so to speak? Is it out
I
of
think,
fear or?
yeah, I think, yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think it's fear of losing who you were. You develop that sense of attachment to who you are. There is a lot of external family pressure sometimes who fear that you might change. I was very lucky in that matter. I think my parents enjoyed that, explorer side of me.
Hmm,
They were appreciative of that explorer side of me. They encouraged that explorer side of me. Many times that is not the privilege people have,
yeah.
because they have this fear, or when they have their children, then they are afraid that will their children develop another identity. So they want to be the person who they are so that they can transfer that
It's almost
identity
like
to their children.
it's a weird thing of control, but not in a
Exactly.
negative point of view. There's that great poem, isn't it? It said your children are from you, but they're not you. They'll see the
Exactly.
future. It's
Yes, you have children, so you would know
absolutely
that.
getting very personal here, Megha. Very personal, but it's true though, isn't it? Because you look at that and the fact that we were lucky. I suppose my wife and I were very privileged for the fact that we did travel. And before we had kids, and even now we do have kids, we take them to different countries and off the beaten track. But the whole idea
Mm,
is to say, well, you're not British as such. You're not just a person of any. You're a human being on the back of
exactly,
this incredible
exactly.
planet, and therefore
Yeah,
you owe it to yourself and the human experience for however long it lasts to explore the planet in which you belong to understand the cultures, the communities. But I think
true.
sometimes as people do, we get sucked into these small zones that almost create a
Hmm,
bubble, and we often see the world as we are, not as it is. And what shapes us
exactly.
is parental influence, friend influence, local media influence. And so if that's the only thing that you've ever resorted to, there's going to come a time where you have this existential problem where you know that there's more across the river, you know that there's more out there, and therefore, the only way that you can control whatever you can control is to either one act out in one sense, or the other one is to go almost a total opposite. Because I think it's in every human being's heart a yearning to say, we need to see the world, we need to see more.
Exactly. Yeah, true. But yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think, yeah, so that's why. And also there's like, these factors that we've discussed. And also sometimes there is this ego. Ego also sometimes stops us from exploring beyond who we are. Like sometimes I feel like either it's in a relationship, or like usually in a relationship, like that when a person comes or moves to a different country, and they are they are expected to adjust in this new environment, but then the fear sometimes clashes with the ego as well. It's a combination of two at times that stops you from exploring, because you feel that ego comes in the way, like, because you feel that the other is changing you. Like the other could be the person in your life who has just come, the other could be the country. There's this ego that why should I change for this other?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're thinking from that perspective, that like, if life is wanting to change you, life will send somebody to change you. But if you resist that change because of your fears or your ego, which usually is what happens, because we think that person is coming, that person is like, like in the form of a human, or circumstances is changing us. So you see it as a threat. You don't see it as a blessing from life that is forcing you to change. And then you are always, uh, resisting that change. And that resistance makes it very boring. Like, when you are resistant towards these changes in your life, then you just are the same person. You will grow, but it doesn't like happen like a full-fledged growth. I don't know if it was too deep and if it was
No,
very
no,
difficult to understand what did
I
you
get what you
understand?
mean. I get what you mean because you're saying,
I'll give you an example, like,
and you gave a good part there because I think ego is fear, isn't it? It's fear. If
yeah,
you know who you are and you trust what you hear when you deeply listen to yourself, then there's no room for ego because there's no room for fear because you have
exactly.
certainty. But if you don't take that deep dive into yourself and your trust is almost superficially in other things, then you're always going to be going back and forth. You know, you're never going to be that custodian, that pillar. And so what you're saying is when you know who you are and you trust that, and people, situations, or circumstances enter into your life, you realize that it's not what you get out of life, it's who you're becoming. And those reasons are there to almost provide you a testing ground to say, how deep does my personality go? How deep does my courage go? Or in some cases,
Mm,
how deep does my inner need to explore that childlike state to say, hey, do you know what? Have a natural curiosity about the planet or people or circumstances, or have this natural high that should surround you. And
mm.
I get that in a massive way, absolutely.
And I also think, like, in my experience of meeting people and talking to people, the people who offer that flexibility of accepting changes in their life find it easier to adjust in the new environment in comparison to those who are uh, who are afraid of those changes or
You
afraid of accepting those changes. But then there is also another important point we need to consider, that, like I mentioned, like, food habits is a very good
yeah.
example, because some people are actually religiously have restrictions, and I have utmost respect for those people and how they find their ways to fit in a new environment despite of those restrictions is also absolutely commendable. Because I remember I met this British guy who has been pescatarian all his life, and in 2017 when I saw him having a vegetarian burrito, and I looked at myself, I was like, oh my God, you're giving me major complex now. That you are a vegetarian and I was a vegetarian and I turned into a non-vegetarian. And that was just like a trigger and in that time I was trying to be a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, because I had developed taste for meat, so I was like, finding it hard to resist. So there was this like, so now at this point, after 10 years of eating all these things, my question was that before I had a self-control, do I still have it? Can I still bring it back in me? Or have I become too much of explorer, that have I lost that, So that trigger occurred to me at that point when I met this person. And so I think, like, it's just interesting, like, like how these incidences come in your life, and then you start questioning yourself, and then you are like, you make an effort to make other changes yourself, because you want to, because I personally wanted to experiment more on myself. I wanted to see that how it would be. Obviously I was conscious and I was finding it to give up, especially because I loved chicken very much. And then I was like, oh, I have to quit chicken. Every time I would see like fried chicken, I was like, oh, are you sure you want to be a vegetarian?
Yeah.
So, so I am just giving you example of food because it's an easy and,
No, I think food's
you
probably
can relate it to people.
the strongest thing though is what you put in your body because you become that thing. So
Yeah.
I think you can tell a lot about an individual by their dietary habits, by their food intakes, what they eat, when they eat as well. I think that's an interesting part. Um, Megha, you deal a lot with the migrant story, and you
Hmm.
have a look at not just the positive, but also some of the negative experiences that people go through. And I know this
Hmm.
is a really interesting podcast because we're almost going into that deep dive of personal philosophy that guides people. What do you think? And you mentioned it earlier about the big misconceptions. People almost travel to a new country expecting life to get better. So they think, and there's circumstances that make people move as well. And we can't forget about that. And some of these circumstances are quite dire. But what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about the migrant story? And especially those that go to a place like Japan.
I think that they have a happier life, and they are very rich. They are living in a very luxurious atmosphere. So these are the misconceptions usually people have. And then that makes them feel that they also want that life. And then their struggle starts to go abroad. Their desperation starts actually to go abroad. So this is yeah, I think that in just one word, like the idea that grass is greener on the other side the is the whole idea of migration, I think, in people's head. But yeah, so people like even this documentary that I have made about the trailing spouses who move to Japan as a result of marriage. So when I was interviewing them, they also tell me like, like when they were, when their families, their parents were looking for a spouse, they were very excited with the idea of getting married to somebody living abroad because they had relatives living abroad. And then so the migrants also are at fault because when they go back to India, they show that they have a very good lifestyle. They don't reveal that about their struggles. It's a very recent concept that people have started talking about their problems. But there is like, so people when they go back, they would like take like lots of presents, big suitcases, and then when you see those people, oh my God, my uncle has come from Canada. He's so
Yeah.
rich. I want to go. So this is the kind of impression they also put on the people, you know. But then this is the major misconception people have that they are earning loads shit of money, which is not true.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are earning more than them, but in the society where they are living, the
Yeah.
money is probably not enough. Or how they are earning is at the cost of their own bodies. Like they are overworking or they are doing like factory jobs, they're doing like cheap labor and earning the amount of money, so they have given up their comforts in many ways. So, which is something people don't talk about, like how migration also means at many times, especially in your initial years, losing your comforts, those that you had back home, which you took for granted.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things that you take for granted, when you are living in home. This is also like another thing that we as humans are always thinking that, it's happier somewhere else rather than understanding that it's happy now in this moment. This is the best. You can have more, of course, you should work and make
Mm.
efforts to get more, but you should have an immense gratitude for what you have now. Because tomorrow, when you look back, you would see, like, oh, that was beautiful.
What is your personal philosophy for life? Because I'm hearing something merging through. It's these buzzwords that are coming through that I think, okay, I can kind of see what's shaping Megha now. It's the gratitude is having a look at the bigger picture. And you're right. I think if we hit the nail on the head, it ultimately will come down to an experience, like a great dream. At the end of it, you
Hmm.
wake up from that dream and you're left with these amazing feelings. You can't really remember every precise detail of the dream, but you know that it was good.
Hmm.
And I think the same thing's true of the human experience. You can go back and look at that voyage that you charted yourself from the different
Hmm.
destinations to different people through to different conversations. And it will all come down to experience. Did I enjoy that
Hmm.
experience? But your personal philosophy, what has it emerged into? And I'm putting you now on a pedestal. We're going to set up a cult around you now, Megha. You do realize that. But
Okay, so I think like philosophy, like there's so many philosophies, but yeah, I would just say like for me, one important thing in everything I do or say or or feel or experience, I think for me what is the most important thing is just one word: balance. Balance of everything is very important for me. So everything I feel like whether it's like, sometimes it happens like there are very happy moments in my life, and my friends are like, you didn't look very elated. And I was like, I am absolutely elated, but I just don't want to go crazy with my elation. I want that balance. And if I am very sad, there'll be very rare moments. Of course, I cry. Of course, I laugh and I feel elated. But then most of the times I try to be balanced. Like, like it doesn't mean that I'm monotonous. It doesn't mean like I'm a boring person. It's just that like I enjoy the practice of balance in my life in every aspect of it. And that is one of the things like recently that I've been practicing for many years, actually, not recently. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail, of course. But then, yeah, I think like that is the core thing I look into in everything I do, the idea of balance. Or yeah, so
Fantastic.
that's very important.
Megha, if people want to find out more about your work and people want to find out more about the documentary that you've been working on, where can they go?
They can just Google my name.
Because I'm that big, I'm that famous. Just Google
No,
me.
no, I think it's just Google. Google does a very good job. It's not me, it's Google. Let's credit the Google. It's not me who's big, it's Google that is big. And Google is able to fit us all very well inside Google. So if you write Megha Wadhwa Tokyo, you would be able to find all my works,
Okay,
or
so
you would
makes
find the links that will
okay,
take you to my work. But I can
fantastic.
also share my links with you and you can post them if you would like.
I think that makes sense. Good. Megha, as always, it's a real pleasure to touch base with you and talk to you. And thank you very much for taking that time to take a deep dive into your personal perspectives. I told you it's easy, didn't I?
Yeah, it was very nice.
Good.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're more than
And
welcome.
thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. And it's always wonderful talking to you. Yes.
You're more than
Off
welcome.
record is more fun, but yeah, on record is also fun.
What a fantastic conversation. I'm sure you agree. Now, if you like what you heard and you want to find out more, couldn't be easier. Simply click on the links available via this podcast on the platform you're listening to, or type in our guest names. Megha Wadhwa, Japan. That way you can come across all the work she's been doing. It's over decades worth of experience looking at the migrant functioning and the experiences that the communities face there. She's also got a documentary coming out, and I've put a link of her trailer within the podcast. It is an incredible trailer. It is very raw, it's very open, but I think something that many of the community could share. You can see the fears as well as the hopes of the diaspora within that. Now, if you like what we do and you want to lend a hand, could it be easier? All you simply have to do is share and like our work. By doing this simple thing like this, we get to continue building the world's largest repository of conversations of purpose that redefine our understanding of the human experiences behind our perceptions of identity. Well, that's all for this week. And until next week, I hope all remains well. Take care for now.
Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.